ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس ليذيقهم بعض الذي عملوا لعلهم يرجعون.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
زين للناس حب الشهوات من النساء والبنين والقناطير المقنطرة من الذهب والفضة والخيل المسومة والأنعام والحرث ذلك متاع الحياة الدنيا والله عنده حسن المآب. قل أنبئكم بخير من ذلكم للذين اتقوا عند ربهم جنات تجري من تحتها الأنهار خالدين فيها وأزواج مطهرة ورضوان من الله والله بصير بالعباد.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. يا أخواتي في دين الإسلام، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has spared our soul to this moment. We worship Him, we adore Him, we honor Him. We are especially grateful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that has kept our soul to this moment, that we are witnessing the virtual not training from the 26th edition theme, The Menace in the World, Muslim Stars on Call. And we have been feeding ourselves with the various inspiring lectures right from the time that the program has commenced. Inshallah, we're looking this time around a lecture that has to do with the Ummah, the present condition of Ummah. And to anchor that for us is no other person than our mother, Alhaja Basirah Rabiu. She is a teacher par excellence. She had a degree at the University of Lagos State, BSc Mathematics. She is a motivational speaker, a caregiver, and presently she is the Vice Principal, Hostel Administration, Vanguard Academy, Odoshegolu. Bismillah.
Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nashkuru wa nu'minu bihi. ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا إنه من يهدي الله فهو مهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له ونشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن سيدنا محمد مصطفى صلى الله عليه وسلم وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. We seek refuge in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala from shaitan, the accursed. May He not have a share in the affairs of our lives. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity of this particular moment, for keeping us alive till this time, and for making us Muslims. We seek refuge in Allah from the evils of our deeds and of our soul. May He continue to protect us and continue to guide us aright. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide is one that will be guided. Whoever Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has not shown guidance will have no other person to guide him. We beseech Him to continue to guide us and protect us. We seek the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala continuously on the best of leaders, the teachers of teachers, the leaders of mankind, Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu mercy unto the whole world, his household, his companions, and all those who are struggling to tread his path to the day of Qiyamah. My dear sisters in Islam, I greet us in the best mode of greeting. The greetings of the inmates of paradise, may Allah count us among them by saying Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for giving us the opportunity of witnessing this particular year's Alumnus Training Forum. May He count us among those that will be of benefit and blessings from this particular activity. The theme of this year's program is Menace in the World, Muslim Sisters on Call. Since Muslim sisters cannot be on call except we know what exactly concerns the menaces of the world. One of the major menaces of the world today is the condition of the Muslim Ummah itself. All over the world, wherever there are Muslims, we discover that there are so many issues the Muslims are battling with. Before we proceed, let us define what the Ummah is. The Ummah in Islam, in the Arabic, means community. And the Muslim Ummah refers to the community of Muslims or Muslim nations. These Muslim nations or Muslim Ummah comprises of Arabs and non-Arabs. So we have example of Arabs community that comprise the community of Arab nation that comprise the community of the Muslim. There you have Saudi Arabia, you have Kuwait, you have Iraq, you have Egypt, you have Syria, and so on and so forth. And the non-Arabs, you have Turkey, you have Malaysia, you have Indonesia, Pakistan, Mali, Somalia, Nigeria, and so on and so forth. Hence, you discover that even with this, where we have Muslim in majority and where we have the Muslims in minority. There are no communities, no nations of the world where there are no Muslims. Hence, majority are in the Arab states and some Asian and African countries, where the minority can be found in Europe, in France, in Burma, and some African countries as well. The Ummah consists of a population of about 1.6 billion people, approximately more than a third of the world population. Being a Muslim Ummah, we need to define who Muslims are. The Muslims are those that submit wholeheartedly to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, completely believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and His Messenger. The core of our belief are in the 6 articles of faith. When the Prophet told us that you believe in Allah, you believe in the angel, you believe in the revealed books, you believe in the last day, you believe in predestination, either it is good or bad. We have a summary of this in Quran chapter 2, verse 285. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala enjoined us to submit to Him completely and to submit to the messenger too, by telling us in Quran chapter 2, verse 208, that's Surah Al-Baqarah, بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says يا أيها الذين آمنوا ادخلوا في السلم كافة ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان إنه لكم عدو مبين. That you believers, is reminding us, enter into this Islam wholeheartedly, submerge yourself into Islam completely from head to toe. ولا تتبعوا خطوات الشيطان. Do not follow the footsteps of shaitan. إنه لكم عدو مبين. He is to you an open enemy. This means that whatever we are going to do as Muslims, the core must be on the basis of Islam. Once we decide to choose a particular thing to do outside what Islam enjoins, we are following the footstep of shaitan. And of course we know shaitan is an accursed person and is looking for accomplice wherever he could find any. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that we should follow the footstep of the Prophet sallallahu when he told us that it is not befitting for a believer, male or female, when Allah and His Rasul has decided a particular matter, to have another option other than that. And that is Surah Al-Ahzab, verse 36. So, this community we are looking at, that is the foundation of the life of a Muslim. This Ummah has its own formation. How is the Ummah formed? Every principle of governance, politics, economics has its basis, has its ideology, has its philosophy. The foundation of the Ummah al-Islamiyya, the Muslim Ummah, is based on creed, on the Islamic ideology. These 6 articles of faith form the prominent thing in the foundation or the formation of the Muslim Ummah. The law of this Ummah, it means that the basis of the Islamic Ummah, the core foundation of the Islamic Ummah is the belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His Messenger, and all the 6 articles of faith. It's different from the present Western civilization that is based on the principle of there's no God. Yeah, you only believe in what you can see. And that is why it's equally different from the belief of the socialist or the communist that believe that what is the basis of life is matter. Everything is material. So definitely, each of these entities, this formation of community, cannot have the same, you can't see the same result in their activities, in the way things go about in their community. Secondly, its law is the Sharia. The Sharia has in its source the Quran, the Kareem, the Hadith of Sallam and his Sunnah, the Qiyas, that is analogical deduction, saying, okay, if this is this, then that is that. And that's why you find in the fact that Certain things are not expressly condemned by the Quran or by the Prophet ﷺ. But when scholars look at it, they make deductions from those things that are forbidden to categorize certain things equally as forbidden. Each is secret. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, do not take anything that is injurious to your health. And from that, the scholars said the cigarette is injurious to health. Therefore, it is what? Haram. Do not consume it. So, the other one is ijtima, where you have, ijma is the consensus of the opinions of scholars. So when scholars look at issues and come out and say, okay, based on this, and this is the fatwa that is coming from it. So it's different from a community where the law is man-made. And every man-made law has its limitations and its deficiencies. So Allah the Creator is the only one that can make laws. And only His laws are perfect. And it is on this basis of the law that governs the Muslim Ummah. Thirdly is the knowledge of the Quran and putting its teachings into practice. The Muslim Ummah, you discover that whatever they want to do is directly from the Quran, the Sunnah of Sallam. And of course, it is not, that is where we have conflict. When some people believe that Muslims that are living in a particular country must live a secular life, whereby when they go to the church, the mosque, they go and worship. Outside the mosque, any other thing they do has nothing to do with the Quran or the Sunnah of Sallam. That is not the law, the basis of life of a Muslim. Then one of the features, the formation of the Ummah Islamiyya is that it has Sam'a wa Ta'a. There's always a leader and there are followers that are ready to obey that particular leader. There is no community, according to Umar radiallahu anhu, there is no community without leadership. And there is no leadership without Sam'a wa Ta'a, without obedience. So there must be obedience. Then, one of the fundamental formation of the Muslim Ummah is the hallmark of their activity is sacrifice of the members of the community. They understood the verse in Surah At-Tawbah, verse 111, very perfectly. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, Inna Allah ishtara min al-mu'minin, anfusahum, wa amwalahum, bi anna lahum al-jannah. Allah has purchased from the believers his life, his properties, in exchange for Jannah. So they know that what Allah is purchasing from them does not belong to them. But Allah is asking them to sacrifice it for the sake of Him, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's sake, the religion of Islam and the Muslims and humanity in general. So, and one of the formation, when the Ummah was formed, it is one entity without geographical demarcation. From Hijaz to Europe to Andalusia, there is no boundary. There is a Khilafah that governs, that gives commands, and every member must obey. And you will see, from the formation of this Ummah, his members are bold and courageous. And that's why historians will say they are monks by the night and horsemen by the day. Monks by the night is that for a good part of the night, they are always observing prayer, remembering Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, observing tahajjud. But when it is the daytime, you meet them on the horse, you think they don't know how to do any other thing other than that. So they are very bold and very courageous. And of course, this is a justly balanced Ummah. That's what Allah described us with in Surah Al-Baqarah, verse 143. So this tells us what the formation and the fundamental characteristics of our Ummah. It balances between spirituality and materiality. It's maintained a middle course, neither shifting too much to the left or too much to the right. Now, we want to see, over time, year in, year out, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that He checks a community with another one. And at a particular point in time, the Ummah is in one of two situations. It's either it is in a position of strong strength and in power, they have says, and they can defend themselves. That is halatul awwa. Halatul quwwa, sorry. Halatul quwwa means at that particular point in time, the Ummah is powerful. It has respect. It has prospect. It is strong enough to determine the course of direction of its members. And of course, this particular period started when the Prophet ﷺ established the community of Muslims in Medina. And it continued like that in some earlier part of the 13th century. We have the Khilafah. When Prophet ﷺ passed away, we have the Khulafa Rashidin. When the four of them passed away, that's Abu Bakr, Umar, Uthman, and Ali, we have others taking over. Till the last of the Khilafah was collapsed in Turkey. And that was in 1928 by Kemal Atatürk. So, the second situation that the Ummah will find itself is Halatul Da'f, period of weakness. And that's what we are witnessing now. So by the end of the 13th century, the power of the Ummah had collapsed. And we witness, and it's continuously till this particular moment. We don't have a single voice. We don't have a single leader. Nobody to fight for it, for the Ummah itself. So from that time, the Ummah had become an orphan on its own. And the Muslims witnessed series of incidents. Now, the Ummah yesterday was strong and powerful. We need to remind ourselves of this because today, the Muslims have no self-esteem. The average member of our Ummah does not know the position of his grandfathers. We feel so weak, we feel so low, to the extent that we are ready to follow whatever anybody tells us. We are ready to follow other people's ideology, despite the fact that it is glaring to the blind man that cannot see that this ideology has nothing to offer humanity other than destructions. So, this particular Ummah that we were talking about yesterday was a Ummah that is leading in knowledge and education. Was a Ummah that understands the meaning of Ikra. That was the first revelation given to the Prophet ﷺ. Was leading in knowledge and education. Al-Azhar was the first university in the world. And scholars all over the world, even the Europeans, issues that they find difficult to handle in their own place, they will bring it to Al-Azhar for the scholars of Islam in consultation. The very good example was the case of two women that were fighting about a particular boy. And they didn't even know what to do. They traveled all the way from Europe to Al-Azhar, meeting the scholar that is sitting under the tree. We have this issue. What do we do? And the scholar told them, this is not a big deal. Collect the breast milk of each of these women and weigh it. The heaviest one is the owner of the male child. They did. And the weight of the milk of the baby boy is twice that of the baby girl. They were able to identify the mother. And there you have people questioning the fact that the share of, they see it as oppression to the woman, that the share of the male child in inheritance is twice that of the female. Why? That is discrimination. That is oppression of the female. And why should two women serve as a witness when a single man can stand as a witness? And so on and so forth. And you now realize the reason why the baby boy eats more. You feel the suckling of your male child more than that of the female child most of the time. So, scholars of Islamic jurisprudence were scientists and philosophers. A lot of the foundation of science emanated from our fathers. Al-Khawarizm was referred as algorithm. The books of Ibn Sina for medicine was used for 500 years in Europe without any alteration. But today we're made to feel that we have nothing to offer. Or maybe we have never offered anything. And we equally accepted it and feel inferior to whatever is being offered. At that time we were united and the world was in peace. The world power knew that if you misbehave, the Ummah of Islam is ready to rescue anybody. There were countries that were conquered by Islam and the non-Muslims were left to practice their religion. When the commander of the Muslim, the Khalifa, decided to withdraw the governors of such states, the inhabitants were shedding tears. That's why the fact that the majority of them were non-Muslims. They saw justice. They saw equity at that time. There was justice, there was equity. Leaders governed with the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and they were accountable. Anybody can ask the Khalifa, please, so we cannot listen to you on this khutbah that you're saying, till you explain. It happened to Umar radiallahu anhu. till you explain to us. This clothes that you're putting on, your share of the booty cannot sew this long dress. How come? And the woman had to answer. Abdallah, please, come and explain to them. Because my own is not enough for me, and I don't have another one. My son gave me his own to join to it to make a dress that will be enough for me. Okay, fine, you can continue. We will listen to you. That was leadership at that time. The people were bold enough to ask their leaders questions. The Ummah was prosperous. During the reign of Umar bin Abdulaziz, zakat was collected and there was nobody to receive it. They were going around the community with zakat. Nobody qualified to collect zakat. The Ummah at that time was respected. The Ummah was peaceful. The Ummah was powerful. But let us look at us today. Before we go to that, I will give us a clip, just one of the examples of the power, the prosperity, and the knowledge in possession of the Muslims at that time. There was a letter that was written from George II, King of England, Sweden, and Norway, to the Khalifa of the Muslims at that time, the leader of the Muslims in Andalusia. Andalusia is in today's Spain. And you still find the architecture of the Muslims there till today that were turned into museum. When they discovered that this kind of architecture is so superb and supreme, they destroyed what they could destroy. It's not today that the blood of Muslims have started flowing. That has started flowing centuries back. They destroyed what could be destroyed, but at a particular point in time, they realized that this is sheer stupidity. Let's just leave the remaining. These things are valuable. He wrote this letter at that time to the king of Muslims in Andalusia, His Majesty Ishiam III of extreme status. He said, with due exaltation and respect, we wish to inform you that we have heard about the great achievement, the unadulterated splendor of which radiance through the institutions of science and technology in your densely populated city. Hence, we want our children to have a touch of these virtues, and as a good start in following your footsteps in our towns that has been engulfed by ignorance in all of its four corners. We have also sent our sister, our niece, Princess Dubant, as the head of delegations of daughters of English noble, as that she would receive a touch of honor and education from your Majesty along with her colleagues. We have also given Princess a token gift for your Majesty, hoping that you would not mind accepting it. With due respect and sincere love, your obedient servant, George II. George II was claimed to be a servant to Ishiam III, the king of Andalus at that time. My dear sisters, from Science and Faith, that's a group. There was this clip that was referring to the greatest contribution of Islamic era. And then you have the Nobel laureate in physics of 1903 in person of Pericles saying, we have 30 books left behind from Muslim and Andalusia so that we could split the atom. Do you get what I'm saying? And he continued with saying, if a half of the 1 million bond books could survive, we would already have traveled between galaxies in space. That's the extent of the knowledge that our fathers left behind. But because in the process of colonization, they started killing and destroying, they threw these books into the ocean and it was able to make a bridge. They were crossing over before they realized that it is stupid for us to keep throwing. We can benefit from these books. So, and not only books, Muslims were killed in millions. But what is the state of the Ummah today? The first disturbing thing about this Ummah today is that it's an Ummah of the ignorant people. Majority of the members of this community today are highly ignorant of the Quran and the Sunnah itself. They don't know the history of Islam and its civilization. At the same time, the Ummah is filled with incapable scholars and ignorant followers. You have Bidya in abundance. The Ummah does not, members of the Ummah does not know the right of women anymore. They've mixed everything with their own culture.
Yes.
Wherever you find Muslims in abundance, you see them in between Islam and their culture. All that matters to them Islamically are the 5 daily prayers, the pillars of faith.
Islam.
Every other thing that surrounds the house apart from the pillars does not matter. It's done according to their own traditions. You see it in our wedding, you see it in our way of life, you see it in our burial ceremonies, you see it all over the place. Everywhere you find Muslims, you see them. So by the time we have ignorance of Quran and the Sunnah itself, and we don't even know our history, we become slaves. The second dominant feature of the Ummah today is that the Ummah has been fragmented. By the time colonial master came, they shared us as if they are sharing cakes among themselves. Hence, we are partitioned into nations and tribes, and we hold these things supreme, much more than the collective good of the Muslim Ummah. We forget that Muslims are brothers, irrespective of color, race, tribe, and language. We now hold our nations supreme, and we care less what happens to other Muslims all over the world. I'm not a Palestinian. Why is that all my business? That's what we hear. The Ummah is given into materialism and love of the world. You see these sacrificing their brothers because they want power. You want to be in position. At the same time, you equally see in the Ummah underdevelopment and backwardness. The Ummah is the poorest today. When you think of underdeveloped nations, you think of nations of Muslims. Only Turkey is struggling to raise its head now. Every other nation that Muslims are in majority are classified as underdeveloped. We don't have nuclear power, with the exception of Pakistan. We don't have a say in anything in the world. Decisions are made against us. Economically, our GDP is one of the lowest in the world, in virtually all nations of the Muslims. We have autocratic and bad leadership. The nations of Muslims today have leaders who don't have masses on his members. From head to toe. Corruption holds supreme. Leaders living in abundance at the expense of the followers and underdeveloping their nations. Even cutting away their money, the money that should be of benefit to the development of their nations, to the European countries. Have you ever seen Switzerland fighting any war? They don't have any issue with anybody. Because virtually every leader that stole from the Muslim Ummah is deposited in Switzerland. And the only way you can cash your money is your fingerprint. Once it's dead, that's the end of that resources. So you see them living in affluence at our expense. And they are quick to tell us you are underdeveloped. The Yoruba says the person that steals palm oil from the ceiling is not the thief, but the person that collected it from him. So my dear sisters, we have war all over, from beginning to the end, from A to Z of Muslim countries. Name it. You start from Iraq, from Syria, you move to Lebanon, Palestine, you move to Yemen, you move to Somalia, you move to Sudan, the people of Burma are there. Due to internal wranglings among ourselves, the love of power, extremisms. Because, for example, how do you justify Boko Haram? When our forefathers, the prophet that brought Islam as the last messenger, started with Iqra, read. And some people are now saying reading is haram. How do you juxtapose the two? They have no correlation. They will claim they are fighting for Islam. The last adoption they did in Katsina is to send children away from school. And will that not send us back into much more of backwardness? When those states are themselves educationally disadvantaged. So, and of course, ignorance on the part of the Muslims and power play by the external factors, external forces. Wherever you see war in a Muslim community, you find somebody telling him go and kill your brother. That brother is spying on you. I will provide you arms and ammunition. They stand in between the two of them. And it happened in the Iraqi-Kuwaiti war. It's happening between Saudi Arabia and Yemen now. Brothers, brothers, brothers that speaks the same language. So we have moral decadence among Muslims. And of course, it's no longer again saying that we have an unproductive and a consumer nation. Muslims have no say in their community. Majority of Muslims, wherever you find them, are the peasants, farmers, conductors, meat sellers, shoe makers, shoe shiner, doing peasant jobs all over. Is that the position that is meant to be occupied by the best of nations? That's what we are. That's what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us we are. And that's what we were. That's what we inherited from our forefathers. We were poor, despite the abundance of natural resources. Take any Muslim-dominated country, you will find abundance of natural resources there. Take Nigeria, take Saudi Arabia, take any other. As you move along that axis, what will you find? Even Turkey now had found abundance of oil in the Black Sea. And the scholar was making a jest. He said Erdogan was looking for gas in the White Sea, not knowing that Allah deposited it in the Black Sea. But what has these resources translated into? When the inhabitants are at the lowest capacity handling level globally, we are labeled as terrorists, thereby leading to Islamophobia. Incidents that are not in any way linked to the Muslims will be dropped at the Muslims' end. And the media is not being controlled by the Muslims. We don't have a voice on the media. Anywhere in the world, we don't have a voice. You will discover that even when they discover that these things are not being done by Muslims, they will keep repeating Islamic terrorists. And of course, that propaganda keeps sinking into some people's intelligence that Muslims are bloodthirsty people. And at the end of the day, we find out that the blood of the Muslims is cheaper than the mosquito globally. That is where the Ummah is today. Let us come back home to Nigeria, where we are. We see Boko Haram war. And when Boko Haram was being faced squarely and their powers are reducing, banditry came up again among the Muslims. We have high level of illiteracy, drug addictions among the youth. When I first heard of the drug case, codeine case in Kano, I nearly wept out my eyes. When the younger generation of the Ummah is destroyed by drugs, I remember the case of the blacks in the United States. In order for them not to start asking questions about their past, they were left loose into drugs. So, where do we go from there? When our youth lives on drugs, they will be rendered useless. Is it then they will ask for their position? Is it then they will pursue anything that will be positive for them to have an headway? Look at the issue of the use of hijab. Despite court injunctions and acceptance by some Western nations of the right of Muslims to use these things, we still find ourselves in Nigeria being treated as second-class citizens on our God-given right, on issues that our constitution is clear about. Part of it is that our scholars have created comedy on the social media. Rather than enlightening the Ummah and presenting Islam in the good light, they've resorted to abusing each other and watching their dirty lenience outside. Is it then that we're going to make progress? Rather than working together, they've resorted into insults among themselves, downgrading themselves, putting out the privacies of each other. Is it then people will respect Muslims? Is it then followers will be knowledgeable? When you go to some mosque and you listen to the khutbah, you feel like I've just wasted my time. If not for the fact that the angels will mark me as being present for the Jummah service. And for the fact that I have the reward of at least making an effort to obey Allah to come to the mosque on Friday. That's where we find ourselves. During the NSAS protest, Muslims were killed in large numbers in the east, and their mosques were burnt down in the southeast. None of the media reported it except the social media, as if it doesn't happen. But I'm so sure, if it were to be a church, the whole world will hear it. They'll keep re-echoing it for weeks, for months. And the next thing you will hear is Islamization of Nigeria. Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. Who is being persecuted? They will turn the table around. And of course, is it then that we want the government to talk of redress in such a situation? Recently, too, we had an embarrassing case, and the Ummah was helpless. The late Alhaja Asiata Oyedepo. Till today, nobody knew the whereabouts of the dead bodies. All we could do is to resort to Salatul Ghaib. The police were informed, the governor was carried along, all to no avail. So that is our situation, my dear sisters. That is where we find ourselves. This is what we have been reduced to. So, my dear sisters, these things are not strange. They are not new. The Prophet ﷺ made predictions about them 1,400 years ago, when he said a time will come when nothing will be left in the mind of the people from the Quran but its calligraphy, and from Islam except his name. People who call themselves Muslims will be the farthest from Islam. An Englishman said it, that if not for the fact that he had accepted Islam before meeting the Muslims, he wouldn't accept Islam. Another one said, you go to the land of the non-Muslims, you see Islam. You come to the land of the Muslims, there is no Islam there. So we are a counterfeit of what we claim to be. Mosque will be filled but empty from guidance. We go to Juma service, people will even run in at the 9 minutes, perform ablution and pray because they know the Imam will say nothing meaningful. They have nothing to gain. The ulama, scholars of that time, will be the worst under the heavens. From then, the elements of division and misguidance are spewed. My dear sisters, is this not true? This is reported by Tabrani, Delami, and Al-Hakam. Nations will unite against this Ummah. The Prophet said it. Taban reported it. The Prophet said, soon, nations will call one another against you, just as people call one another to eat from a platter of food. Then one of the companions asked, will this be because we'll be few in number, O Messenger of Allah? The Prophet said, no. You will be large in number. You'll be like guitar, like a froth. A froth come on the surface of a body of water. And he now said, Allah will remove from the heart of your enemies your fear, their fear of you, and shall place in your heart wine. They now ask, what is wine? He said, love of this worldly life and the fear of death. Subhanallah.
No, Akbar.
Our Prophet is the messenger of truth. So, my dear sisters, but even with this, and with this present situation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us glad tidings, and his prophet has said so. Hope is not lost. We must not lose hope. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us that the believers should not lose hope. La taqnatan min rahmatillah. Do not lose hope in the mercy of Allah. There is victory in the horizon. Some of the glad times the Prophet promise has been fulfilled, but some are still going to be fulfilled. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, huwa alladhi arsala rasulahu bil huda wa dinil haqq liyudhhirahu ala dini kullihi walau kariha al mushrikun. Whether you like it or not, it is Allah that has sent his messenger with guidance and religion of truth. And this religion will prevail over all other religions, even though the mushrikun, the pagans, the unbelievers detest it. It shall come to pass. And the Prophet told us, Allah folded the earth for me, so I saw the east and the west of the earth. Indeed, the sovereignty of my Ummah shall get to those places folded for me. No wonder where the element of hatred of Islam is screwing up. the indigenes are accepting Islam in droves. When the September 11 incident happened, it was supposed to be a tragedy for Muslims, but it became a plus for Islam. How can some people be that bold fighting for their own particular cause to the extent of, who are those people? They kept on searching into Islam. They got to know the truth. And they became friends of Islam. They started accepting Islam. They can't control the rate at which people are becoming Muslims in Europe. Even some claim they are immigrants. Yeah. But we are beginning to see indigenes standing up that we are Muslims, no matter the law that you make. No matter what you say, no matter the level at which you persecute us. So, we must not lose our strength. That's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told us, so lose not heart, nor fall into despair, for you shall be triumphant if indeed you are believers. So my dear sisters, with this situation I find ourselves, losing hope is not a solution. Working to improve and remove the menace is what is important. So let us go back, settle down, look at what to do to improve our situation so that humanity may know peace. The world is as it is today because leadership belongs to the Muslims and we have decided to become spectators. By the time you come back to take our leadership position, the world itself will know peace. And that is what Rabiu bin told them in the palace of Rustum, that Allah has sent us to deliver his servant from the overlordship of man to the overlordship of the Lord itself, to deliver man from the overlordship of religion, from the harshness of religion, to the peace of Islam, to deliver man from being a slave of this world, the narrow confines of this world, to the vastness of the hereafter. So, my dear sisters, we are to stand up if humanity is to know peace. The present civilization has failed mankind. The world is waiting for us. Are we going to rise up to the occasion?
Inshallah.
Are we going to wake up and do our duties?
Inshallah.
And fulfill the covenant that we have signed with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to remove our ummah from the position of ignominy and to save the rest of mankind? A few examples of the calamity befalling the ummah today can be seen on the international scene. The most important of this catastrophe is the case of the Palestinian struggle and the liberation of the Masjid al-Aqsa. Masjid al-Aqsa is the third important mosque to the Muslims. After the Kaaba and the Masjid al-Nabawi in Medina, the third mosque that is so important to the Muslims, that is sacred, behind which every other mosque in the world flow, is Masjid al-Aqsa. Today is under the possession of the Israelis. But from the inception in 1948, when Britain, France, and the world power gave a portion of the land of the Palestinians to the Israel, the Muslims were united against it with one voice. They knew this is against Islam and Muslims. But today, the first problem is the Palestinians themselves. They don't have a single voice. The Fatah still want to continue with roundtable. Why the Hamas feel that oppressors has to be stopped. So it is force for force. You attack me, I attack you. We've been talking for years, no more talks. Then you discover that when election came in 2004, thereabout, the Fatah won the presidency, and the Hamas won many seats in the House of Parliament. So the external forces now came around and said, how can you ask them to making laws for you when you are the ones in presidency? Look at playing in between the two groups. So the Fatah was in control of West Bank, while the Hamas population were mainly from the Gaza Strip. So when you hear cases of catastrophe in Palestine today, it is majorly the Gaza aspect. Such that when pressure were mounted, war were fought, they resorted to blockade. So to the people in Gaza, There's no water, there's no electricity, there is no drugs, continuous bombing and destroying their houses. Such that brethren had to resort to digging tunnels for them to be able to get to where they can get access to food, where those that even want to give them AIDS comes in. Now, the surprising thing is, some other Arab states were palling with the enemies. You can imagine. Arab states are normalizing ties with Israel. Ties that were cut off by their forefathers since the 1948. They are normalizing it. Saudi Arabia took the lead. UAE followed. Bahrain followed. Recently, some few weeks back, Morocco joined them. It led to protest with the people, with the population of the country themselves. The leadership were forcing these ties on the people. And this tie celebration is such that the Israelis are free to do whatever they want. They live their own way of life in the Muslim lands. So if you go to UAE now, you get there in the airport in Dubai, mind the food you eat. Because you are likely going to eat pork if care is not taken. So, my dear sisters, you discover that non-Muslims are even at the forefront of freedom for Palestine. They are the ones championing the boycott. You see non-Muslim countries saying they don't want to see Israeli goods in their countries, banning Israeli goods by their law. These people are not Muslims in majority. The Arab states imposed sanctions on Qatar. Saudi Arabia started, UAE, Bahrain followed. What is the offense of Qatar? Qatar is accommodating scholars that they branded as terrorists. So you can see, they cut off Qatar Air from passing through their airspace. Saudi Arabia, their citizens cannot go to Hajj direct. They have to pass through some other places. From Nigeria, as we speak, to Qatar, before now it was 7 hours. But because they have to merry-go-round, they will spend 10 hours. From Nigeria now to Qatar. So this is the sorry state that we find ourselves. Enemy within, being manipulated by enemy without, against the interest of Islam and the Muslims. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala salvage us. أقول قولي هذا أستغفر الله لي ولكم السلام عليكم ورحمة الله تعالى وبركاته.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillah wa bi'alamin. That has been a thought-provoking one from our mother here. We say Jazakumullah khairan kazeer wa fidini wa la khair. We pray Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant you abundance in knowledge and bless all your thoughts and deeds, inshallah. Once again, I'm saying Jazakumullah khairan on behalf of the organizers of this program. My sister, it has been said, we are all wheels of change. Let us steer the vehicle together and save the world from the menace ravaging the world, and the time is now. There is no other time than now. As mothers, as daughters, as wives, let us do our part and bring the Ummah to the state it deserves. That will be the end of the lecture, inshallah. So we have questions or clarifications from our mothers before we move to the next segment. Bismillah.
يا أيها الذين آمنوا ليستأذنكم الذين ملكت أيمانكم والذين لم يبلغوا الحلم منكم 3 مرات من قبل صلاة الفجر وحين تضعون ثيابكم من الظهيرة ومن بعد صلاة العشاء 3 عورات لكم ليس عليكم ولا عليهم جناح بعدهن طوافون عليكم بعضكم على بعض كذلك يبين الله لكم الآيات والله عليم حكيم وإذا بلغ الأطفال منكم الحلم فليستأذنوا كما استأذن الذين من قبلهم كذلك يبين الله لكم آياته والله عليم حكيم.
Now, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. The question my sister asked is that how do we address our brethren who believe that women don't have a say, they should just remain in the house, they need not be educated, and then they should be left in the sorry state, and our Ummah is like this, and these are mothers that are supposed to train the next generation. This is one of the major points of ignorance that I was trying to talk about. We need to bring to the fore the history of women in Islam, companions of the Prophet ﷺ, and the role they played in the formation of the Ummah from its onset. The formation of this Ummah is not without the input of women. They played major role. Some were warriors, the like of Nusayba bin Kab, the like of Sophia bin Abdul Muttalib. They were warriors. They would face men. They carried swords side by side with men. Some were educators. These mothers of the believers among the wives of Sallallahu, they were the custodian. Hafsa bint Umar was the custodian of the Quran because she has all the Quran by heart. And the Prophet ﷺ instructed our mother, the community, the Ummah, to learn half of the religion from our mother Aisha, if she has not been taught. The reason of such people is to bring the Ummah back into backwardness, to deepen us more into the abyss of backwardness. Let's ask them for their proofs. Let them provide it. From the Quran, from the Hadith, from the Sunnah of Rasulullah. Let them tell us where they have their sources. Let them give us the hujjah that they have. Muslim mothers were custodians of knowledge. A lot of men learned Quran, learned Hadith from the mouths of their mothers. Mashallah. So if the mothers did not know, how will the children know? So such a call is part of what is the tool, the elements of the enemy to push our human much more into the absence of backwardness. So let us challenge their intelligence. Let us challenge their thoughts. And by the time we push our work further, we'll be able to save some of these girls. Inshallah. Of course, there is legislation in the community now against girls' child education. So if they are not ready to educate these girls, we take them over by our own capacity and we educate them. As I speak, I took over a particular Fulani girl in my school then, in Alikmo. She was brought to school by a neighbor. At a particular point in time, the neighbor wanted to exploit her. I and my colleagues, we took over our school fees, and we're giving her monthly transport money per week. She called me last week, she's going to Canada. Her husband has been there for the past 2 years. So let's stand up and play our own role and play our own part. Whoever, any child that is rescued will never forget. And we'll have it as because it's on her mind that I have more people to rescue too. Inshallah. It's going to be done in a day. But let us stand up to our duties. Let us stand up to our responsibilities. So long as we don't keep quiet, we keep telling people the truth, there will always be a difference over time till we get to where we are going. Till we die on the path or we came out victorious. Inshallah. May Allah grant us victory.
Ameen. That has been hate. The time is now. The menace in the world, Muslim sisters on call. The menace abound, poverty, ignorance, and say whatever vices that comes around us, we must stand up and uphold that change and bring the Ummah back to the glorified state. Inshallah, this is where we'll be rounding up the session. We employ us all to visit our pages on our alumnus organization on Facebook and our YouTube. Let us subscribe to it and join us as we bring us more exciting sections. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Alhamdulillah. Alhamdulillah.